But don't use this. This is a lie, okay? This is not true. So if you got some evidence, I would like to see it. Oh man, 5 minutes and I went to the wrong, I don't have a hyperlink page here. Just give me a second. According to evolution, things get better automatically, you know? The PA system tonight. Okay, here we go. Textbooks are going to tell your kids that the appendix is vestigial. This is a lie. Your appendix is part of your immune system. It's been known for years. You need your appendix. Now, you can live without your appendix. You can live without your adenoids. You can live without your tonsils. You can live without both your arms and both your legs. It doesn't prove you don't need it. The appendix is where the immune systems are initiated for the lower colon. Growler Encyclopedia tells about that. If you take your appendix out, you got a much better chance of getting quite a few diseases. But hey, sometimes that's the best option. Get rid of it if it blew up, okay? This textbook says the whale has a vestigial pelvis. Many organisms retain traces of their evolutionary history. For example, the whale retains pelvic and leg bones as useless vestiges. This is a lie, proven wrong years ago. They say, just imagine whales walking around. There's the bones they're talking about right there. Just imagine the whale walking around. There they are, Cambridge University. There they are in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The whale pelvis. Yep. Just imagine them walking around. I tried, I just can't. The whale pelvis is located far from the vertebrae and has no apparent function. Whale's pelvis is evidence of its evolution from four-legged land-dwelling mammals. This is simply a lie. Those bones are necessary, but they're anchor points to certain muscles attached to that allow the whales to reproduce. It has to do with getting baby whales. It has nothing to do with walking on land. So either these guys are all ignorant about whale anatomy and they should not be writing a book about it, or they're deliberately lying, trying to find evidence for their theory to spread to your kids. Now honestly, if there's evidence for evolution, show me. But don't use this, that's a lie. Such structures, which are considered to be evidence of an organism's evolutionary past, are called vestigial. For example, hind legs of whale are vestigial structures. There are no vestigial structures, and if there were, that would still be the opposite of evolution. That's not evidence. They talk about ambulocetus. You know what they really found for ambulocetus is the dark bones here. We could talk a long time. She brings that up during Q&A. I'm ready for that one. I'd love to see that one. Ambulocetus, there's another one. All they found was a few bones of the head. Later, when they found more bones of a different animal, they said, wow, it's like a wolf. The first one, though, they found a piece of skull, a small piece of jaw, and a few teeth. But the ear bones resemble slightly whale ear bones. That's all they needed. Proof. There's missing link right there. An ear bone. We've got in our museum a 15.5-foot python snake. At the south end, he's got little tiny claws sticking out of the body right there. These little claws are attached to a little tiny bone that goes up inside the snake's body. We also have a boa in our museum, 6.5-foot live one. You can come down and pet it if you like. But they say, this textbook says, the rudimentary hind legs of a python snake are seen in the skeletal structure. Rudimentary hind legs. Those little claws are used in mating, okay? The snake doesn't have any arms, and he can't talk and say, scoot over, honey. This has nothing whatsoever to do with walking on land. Now, if you got evidence for evolution, then show me. But don't use this kind of stuff, okay? They're lying to your kids. This guy says the humans have a tailbone that is of no apparent use. I debated an atheist one time, and he said, I got proof for evolution, human tailbone. I said, sir, I taught biology and anatomy. I happen to know there are 9 little muscles that attach to the tailbone, without which you cannot perform some valuable functions. I won't tell you what they all are, but trust me, you need those muscles. I said, now, if you think the tailbone is vestigial, I will pay to have yours removed. This textbook says the coccyx, that's your tailbone, is a small bone at the end of the human vertebral column. It has no present function, and is thought to be the remainder of bones that once occupied the long tail of a tree-living ancestor. This is simply a lie, okay? Now, tonight, I would like Dr. Trivers to be very specific. I don't want him to say, biology offers evidence for evolution. I don't want to hear that. I want to see specifically what part of biology offers evidence for evolution. Don't say, geology offers evidence for evolution. Give me a specific, okay? If you want to talk about the fossil record, I'm thoroughly prepared to do that. There is no fossil record. There are fossils, but there is no fossil record. They don't come with a date on them when you dig them out of the ground. All we know is there's a lot of bones found in the dirt. I mean, billions of them. None of them indicate they've changed from one to another. If you found one that looked a little different than something alive today, that still could prove an extinct species, not a missing link. I'm telling you, in a court of law, they laugh at you for bringing up fossils. But see, evolution doesn't have to be proven in a court of law. It only has to be made believable to a bunch of students. by a professor who has a very obvious academic and psychological advantage over those students. And I, for one, resent paying for that. And I think some other folks do too. Thank you so much.
Set up outside with next cards and pencils, so if you have a question, please write. First, we'll ask Dr. Hogan some questions, Dr. Hogan will answer, and Dr. Hogan, that'll be for about 10 minutes. And then Dr. Hogan will ask Dr. Turber some questions, and Dr. Turber will give the answers for another about 10 minutes. So, Dr. Turber?
Let me just respond with a few comments on the performance we've just seen. Dr. Hogan has a gift for humor, but some of it's so grossly inappropriate that it reveals some of the deeper biases of his work. And let me give you an example of it. He says that the notion that a gene that causes sickle cell anemia found at increased frequencies in sections of West Africa and other parts of the world that have a high incidence of malaria is a foolish notion, and that this would be a beneficial mutation, because he says getting sickle cell anemia to save yourself from malaria is like cutting off your foot to avoid what was an athlete's foot. Well, that was very funny, but yeah, you're welcome. But it's nonsense, and it's deeply insulting if you actually follow through the logic to the biological characteristics of other people, an issue I want to return to a little bit later when I get a chance to question this character. Malaria is not athlete's foot. Malaria kills over 5 million people every year. It is a dreadful, debilitating disease. Sickle cell anemia is also a dreadful condition, but as Dr. Hogan surely ought to know, the protection from malaria occurs if you have a single sickle gene and your other gene is the normal gene. That is, your heterozygous. You have variability. Then you get the best of both worlds. You are protected from malaria and you have nearly the same capacity to carry oxygen in your blood as an individual with two normal genes. It's only when you are recessive for the sickle trait, that is, have both sickle traits, that you actually suffer from sickle cell anemia. One of the problems that creationists have had, and I don't know whether this is true of this man or not, I'll find out a little bit later on, is difficult in explaining racial differentiation and difficult in admitting that races have been selected in different environments in different ways and that they are not to be hierarchically arranged, but are each better suited to the world they found themselves in than the other groups. How all of this took place in the 4,000 years plus that he allows since the flood, I have no idea. He asserts that mutations never produce anything new, which is nonsense on the face of it. He showed you lots of mutations that were new.